Do you know what this is? Do you know what these numbers mean? What these circles, what these colors mean? If you don't, that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. But if you do know what these numbers mean, and you do understand the implication of this, then you are more informed, you are more aware, you are more financially and economically savvy than 99% of the global population. And that includes the people that work in the banking sector on Wall Street. So I'm going to go over what those numbers are because there's a decent chance you don't know what those numbers are. There's a decent chance that you might know some of them, and with a little bit of work, you might be able to figure out what some of it means. But if you aren't deep into Bitcoin, then there's a really good chance that you don't know what most of it means. The reason I'm making this video is because I had that revelation recently. I showed this number right here, this big one, the most prominent number here, 869,523. I pull this screen up on work when I'm at work, on a computer at work, pretty much every day that I go to work. And I have a coworker who has seen that number continually go up. And she doesn't understand how that's possible. She doesn't understand why it continues to go up. And I've tried to explain it to her. And she might get it now, maybe. I'm not sure. It's been a little while since she asked. But I remember looking at it when that number was in the 700,000s. And I said, wow. Because when it broke 800,000, she's like, oh my goodness, it's 800,000 now. Yeah. And that's not going to stop. That number will not stop. The reason I'm doing this, though, is twofold. I sent a little video saying more or less what I started this video with to my family group. And I said, if you guys don't know what this stuff means, and I think they know what most of it means, at least about 50%, I said, if you don't know what most of this means, then your knowledge on Bitcoin is not robust enough. And one of my brothers said, you should make a video on that. So here I am. But the second reason that I'm making this video is because I reached out to I guess I'd call him a friend. We didn't hang out too much, and there's like a 20-year difference between us, age year difference between us, but I worked with him for a short while, a few months when I was in the Michigan area, and he and I have a fair bit in common. We were both homeschooled, and I think he was homeschooled the entirety of his schooling career, though, whereas I went to high school and then dropped out during the high school years. But pretty similar. He and I are the oldest of our siblings. I think he has one, maybe two more siblings than I do. I think they have a slightly larger family, but not too much bigger. It's not like one of those families where it's like, we have 13 kids. No, they had like 1, 2, 3. Maybe it was the same. Maybe it was the same. 5 or 6, I think. At least when I know him. Maybe his parents have had more children. I don't know. Anyhow, I reached out to him to show him this thing, it doesn't matter, that my wife and I had gotten, and we were asked, it had been like a year or two, maybe 3 since we talked. It had been a while. I think the last time was early COVID days, and they asked how things going, the typical catch up, how things, where you working, what are you doing, and then, oh, I'm doing this, what about you, where are you working, what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I'm not going to go into details on this point, but I told him that my wife and I made a significant life change, aside from the thing that I was showing him, this device that she and I got, and how the reason for making that life change was due to Bitcoin. And his question was, oh, did you hit it? Like, did you get it when it was really low, and then did it pop off and you made yourself millions of dollars, or hundreds of thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars, some significant amount of money? And while the answer to that is kind of yes, to some degree, like the biggest chunk of Bitcoin that I purchased was when I sold the 401k that I'd been building up at the company that I work for. And I don't even think that I was at 5 digits on that thing, if I remember correctly. It was upper 4 digits, like somewhere between $5,000 and $9,000. I don't remember exactly how much it was. And at that time, that was about 2 years ago, I believe. Think. Or was it just last year? I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, pretty sure. And whenever it was, I know the price of Bitcoin was under 20, right around 20, I believe. And so purchased as much as I could, put the entire thing into Bitcoin, and so it's appreciated since then. And I've made purchases other than that, but in comparison to that one, they've all been pretty kind of nickel and dime type things. So our net worth, my wife and mine, has increased some amount, but it's not like a 10x or a 100x. It's not like we turned uh, $10,000 into $10 million. That didn't happen. And I felt that it was important to make this video because he's still relatively young, in his early 20s, I think, at this point. And if I had known about something like Bitcoin and had somebody like myself to explain it to me and answer questions, and then I saved that Bitcoin for 20 years, I would be set for life. Not financial advice, got to make that part clear, but I'm pretty sure that in 20 years, even $1,000 in Bitcoin will be worth drastically more. And if you're wondering, okay, what kind of dollar amounts are you saying? Let's do some silly math right here. Pull up a calculator. Okay. So let's say you put $1,000 into Bitcoin right now. Just $1,000. That would buy you, and this is your first lesson about what these numbers mean, that would buy you 1.3 million sats. That's what this number right here in the upper, I guess you don't see my mouse, but whatever. In the upper, I'll try and point. It's just to the, it's right over here. It's this one right here. This right above the calculator. 1308. That's the sats to USD. That means that for $1 you can buy 1,308 sats. What's a sat? A sat is one piece of a Bitcoin, and there are 100 million units, 100 million sats to one Bitcoin. Just like there's 100 cents in a dollar, there's 100 million sats to one Bitcoin. This is why when people tell you that you've got to get to one Bitcoin like British Hollow does or different people, I see their point, and there is something about the human psyche that likes solid round numbers. So there is value. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to tell you that there's not value in getting to one Bitcoin. There absolutely, unquestionably is, for sure, without a doubt. But like having 80 million sats or 139 million sats, it doesn't really matter all that much. It just matters that you have a good chunk of Bitcoin. It's not like, oh, if you only have 90 million sats, you don't really have anything. No, you definitely do. You have 90% of a Bitcoin. So, yeah, but when you're looking at your wallet, your balance on various apps or on your computer, wherever you're checking it, you're probably seeing that number as a number of sats. You have this many. You're not seeing, you might on some, but a percentage of a Bitcoin, just like you don't see pennies with dollars or some other denomination. Okay, so back to the calculator here. If you were to spend $1,000 right now, you would get yourself 1.3 million sats. Okay. Well, what is the price of Bitcoin going to be in 20 years from now? I don't know. I have no idea. I haven't a clue. And you could look back to 14 odd, whatever, to 16, whatever it is, total years that the Bitcoin network has been in operation. Yeah, you could do that. When did it first start? When was the Genesis block mined? Let's see here. I did think that I know this, but Bitcoin. Let's just do that. Just Bitcoin. 15 years ago, January 9th. Or I'm sorry, yeah, January 9th, 2009. So shortly after the great financial crisis of 2008 is when this was released, right down here. Initial release, 15 years ago. Okay. So if you look back 15 years ago and you go, oh, wow, Bitcoin was, you could, when it first started trading, you could get it for pennies. You could get a whole Bitcoin. There was a website that was giving out 5 free Bitcoin to anybody that went there just to get it in circulation and get it working because people were mining it. You could spend half an hour mining it and you'd get some because nobody else was doing anything. You could use a laptop, a computer, just whatever, and you were doing just fine. If you had done that at that time, you would at this point have life-changing money, like insane amounts of money. The problem is that, well, for most people, they look at that and they go, well, that's it. I missed the boat. Those people won the lottery. That's it. They got lucky. They took a chance on this thing and good for them. Hip, hip, hooray. They made it. That's it. It's done. The gains are over. I don't think so. I am of the opinion that that is not true at all. Now, do I think we will see as high of gains? Can you turn pennies into tens of thousands of dollars? I don't know. I'm inclined to think not. But here's something that I do know for a fact. See this orange ring? Here's your next lesson. The inner orange ring, not the tiny thin one on the very outside. I keep on using my mouse, but for whatever reason, you can't see my mouse. Must be a setting in OBS. But let's see, this thicker orange ring, this one here. Well, if you notice up there, like where the number is, it says 180,476. Let me zoom in on that if I can. Oh, it just keeps on changing. Yeah, this one right here. This number right there. It's all gobbledygooked. Okay. That number, let me refresh this, is, oh boy, that number is how many blocks before the next halving. Here's another lesson. This number right here is the block height. So when that gets put into this will go tick, 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 tick all the way around. And this number here is about how many minutes it takes per block. This is the last block. It's usually about 10 minutes. That's what this number. Okay, I keep on using my mouse. Dang it, my mouse doesn't do anything. So this number right here, this is the last block. The last block was found 7 minutes and 23 seconds ago. Each block is found on average every 10 minutes. When a block is found, that will go up by 1 right here. It'll go to 25, and then this right here will reset. That it'll just keep on doing that. It'll keep on doing it until the end of time. There's nothing that is going to stop this from happening. And you go, oh, well, what if, look, I'm going to tell you right now, trust me, I have done the research. I have looked into it. There is only one way that Bitcoin can be shut down. There's literally only one way. Okay, aside from some sort of a cataclysmic, a meteor the size of California hitting the planet and destroying all life on Earth. Okay, yeah, well, then we're all dead anyways. And yes, that would probably end Bitcoin. But even still, unless all the technology was destroyed and there was even one person that survived, like I guess 2 people survived, there's a chance that it could be restarted in the future. Seriously. Oh, what about an EMP attack? Will the EMP attack go off over the entirety of the globe? Yeah. Okay, well, not only are all the hospitals and all electronics knocked out, yeah, Bitcoin is knocked out as well. but it's just in hibernation. It'll come back. Somebody will restart it. It'll just pick up back off from where it was. You can't kill this thing. Well, you said it'll just keep on going. Okay. There are nuclear level events that would restart Bitcoin, admittedly. But aside from those situations, Bitcoin is going to keep on chugging along. And assuming it keeps on chugging along, that number on this thick orange ring, this one, not the red, the orange, will tick away. And when that happens at block height, what is that? I guess a million. It's a million, block height million something, 1.2 million or whatever it is. A halving will occur. Halving, what does that mean? That means, can I change? Let's see here. I'm dicking around with OBS so I can move myself. That means that, where is it? This number, right up here, that one, right there, 3.125 will be cut in half. That'll be cut in half. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal, because that means that the supply of Bitcoin coming in each day goes from about 450 coins, which is what it is right now, to 225. It is becoming harder to get Bitcoin, harder and harder. This is a really, really big deal, a really big deal, because you have something that is shrinking in its supply. You can see that really thin line on the outside, the outermost thin line, and that one shows how much supply is left. And as you can see, there's not much space left before that's filled out. Now, admittedly, because you can see these lines, the little cross, those are when the halvings have occurred. Those will get closer and closer and closer and closer together. That happens every 4 years. But that's the amount it's showing, how much supply is left. So that's why this down here, the first line right there, it's so big, because it was 50 Bitcoin cut in half, and then it was half of that over here. If this isn't making a whole lot of sense to you, that's okay. Just accept that what I'm saying is true, and just keep on going with it. Now, I need to tell you something that might help with this whole thing and why this matters. If you work on Wall Street, if you're a fund manager, if you work at a family office where people come in and say, hey, Mr. Smith, account planner, my family has some millions of dollars. We've got all these assets. We've got this business. We are worth a total of $5 million. And of that $5 million, we've got some hundreds of thousands in cash, not like physical cash, but sitting in the bank account. And we want somebody to invest that. And honestly, we're actually thinking of selling our business. We're all honestly thinking of selling some of our real estate, because the economic tides in the part of the country where we have these rental properties aren't doing so good, and we just kind of want to get out of that property. It takes a lot of energy and effort to maintain the building, so we just want to get out of real estate. There's maintenance, and it's just painting and upkeep. We just want to get out of it. We're coming to you with our money. We'd like to invest, when it's all said and done, somewhere in the range of $2 million. What can you do with our $2 million? Now, once the little dollar symbol and greedy eyes get out of this guy's face, because he thinks, wow, I can make so much money if I take these people's $2 million. Like, and this is a legitimate person, we're assuming. That's $2 million that he can allocate somewhere. And he'll have his plans, he'll have his strategies, and he'll have his different things. But the number one thing that he's probably looking at is the S&P 500. He'll probably just put most of that money in the S&P 500. That's 500 companies that have all meet these various criteria. And over the last 30 odd years plus, the S&P 500 has had an average return of 14-ish%. That means that if you put $100 in this year, then next year your investments will go up and be worth $114. If you put $1,000 in, your investments in that same time period, instead of 100, if you put 1,000 in, would be worth $1,140. It's not that bad. It's decent. It's not crazy, but it's steady gains. Now, those numbers get kind of interesting and like something that you could actually do something with when we're talking about $1 million, $2 million, because 14% of $1 million is $140,000. That ain't bad. Some people could live off of that. So if you just put your money in the S&P 500, $100,000, and then you skim off that 14%, hey, you could live off of that. You don't even have to take the full 14% gains. You could take 7%. And most people, at least in this country, if they're frugal and they're smart, can live off of $70,000 in a year. Now, there's one big problem to all of this. And this is the problem, what I just told you there about the S&P 500, most people that are in the investment world would be able to tell you. This next part, they don't understand. They won't tell you this. I just watched a video. I could try and find it. Let me see if I can find it. This will help you understand how clueless Wall Street is. People that you would expect to know this kind of stuff don't. Okay, here it is.
I can sell you 20 minutes.
Okay. Watch this. I'm going to play this here. I'm going to play it in 1.25 speed just so it goes a little bit faster.
I can sell you a $20 million painting, but I can't tell you why a piece of code is money.
Okay. So real quick, pause here. The guy on the left, this guy with the white hair, white and gray hair, the glasses on, he used to be the CEO of Sotheby's. Sotheby's is, well, here, I'll just show you. If you don't know what Sotheby's is, they do big time auctions. They sell all kinds of things. Auctions. Look at the watches and art and whatever this table is. That's what they do. They do homes. There's real estate. Auction, sell, finance. So yeah, that's what they do. Okay, so let's go back to the video. So that's why he's saying, I can sell you a $20 million painting.
Painting, but I can't tell you why a piece of code is money.
But I can't tell you why a piece of code is money. Okay, continuing.
That's an interesting paradox. So that was the journey. And so I dove deep and began to question, what is money exactly? I thought it was currency. I was wrong.
Okay, right there. Most people think that as well. Most people think that money is currency. They think the peso is money. They think that the yuan is money. They think that rubles are money. They think that the dollar is money. And they are kind of right in that it is a form of money, but your home, if you have one, is money. Your car is money. Stocks and bonds are money. Assets are money. This harmonica is money. And you might go, you can't go to a grocery store, Dell, and buy a burger with that harmonica. No, I can't. But this is worth something to somebody. Money, the way that I would define it, is time and energy in a tradable form. You take your time, an hour, and your energy, the things that you do. You go and do a job. Maybe you deliver produce. Maybe you make coffee. Maybe you sell trading cards. Maybe you bag groceries. Maybe you plumb houses. You get my point. There's nobody out there that I know of making money with just energy and no time. That obviously doesn't work. You know, how you can expend energy, but it doesn't take any amount of time. So clearly that doesn't work. And I don't think there's anybody spending time but zero amount of energy in making money. You're not using any energy? You're just existing in a state of pure limbo stasis, and no. So it's time and energy. You trade that to some employer, some employee. Maybe you are your employee. You have some project that you do, and then you get, most typically, currency, whatever your local currency is. But it might not always be currency. It might be a harmonica. It might be a jar of water. It might be a telephone. Somebody might give you something other than US dollars or gold coins or whatever your local currency is. Money is a thing that you have turned your time and energy into. So sometimes people, oftentimes, trade their time and energy for a currency, and then they go and trade that currency for other things. But those other things are also now money because you just traded it. So then the question is, well, okay, what is money and then what is currency? Oh, those are good questions. Now we're getting somewhere. Back to the video.
And then what creates value? Why do things have value? What is it about us that ascribes value to things? And then I literally went down a rabbit hole. And it's actually not too far off what Michael Saylor or some of these people talk about, do 100 to 1,000 hours on it, and you really dive into podcasts and dive into the books and ask yourself, go on an intellectual journey about what does all this stuff mean and why is it important? And then there's startling insights that I have now at age 59 that I didn't have at age 57.
Okay, that's really important. This is really important. He's going on 60. He didn't know these things as the CEO of Sotheby's, who does some of the biggest, most expensive auctions in the world. He was the head of that, and he didn't know this. You have to process that for a second. He didn't know that. He's not an outlier. That's normal. Most people don't know this stuff. I can have conversations with my owners, not my owners, with the owners of the company that I work at, and some of what I say, they don't know what I'm talking about. That doesn't mean that I'm super smart. That's not what I'm saying here. It means that I have done research on what this stuff means, and I'm not some sort of savant guru. Like, I would never claim that. It's just, if you do a bunch of research and think, like, I could talk to them about Magic the Gathering, and I could explain to them how this card works and the interactions and the layers, why there's a stack, and they're okay, if you say so, Del. No, that's how the game works. Okay, we just don't know what you're talking about. Finance, investing is another kind of game, but most people don't know how the rules work. And you might go, well, that doesn't make sense. Wall Street bankers, of course, they know how the rules work. They understand the game inside and out. They don't, though. They don't. They've been playing it the same way for a long time, just as Ford has been playing the car game for a long time, and Toyota, and all these other ones. And then along comes this guy by the name of Elon Musk, and he goes, well, hang on a second. What if we build cars this other way? And they go, you can't. That doesn't make, where would you, no, that doesn't make sense. But then he makes it happen. And you see Teslas all over the place. Where I live in the Seattle area, I see a Tesla, multiple Teslas, a dozen Teslas every time I go on a drive. You might not see as many in other places of the country, but I see more than I have limbs to count, more than I have fingers to count every single time I go out on a drive that's more than 5 minutes long. Go to a Walmart, a Costco, a Sam's Club, a Target parking lot, you'll see 20. Like, they're everywhere here. That wasn't the case 10 years ago. If you had told people at NASA, hey, you can build rockets, shoot them into space, orbit a satellite, and then have the rocket come back down and land, they would go, no, you can't. And yet Elon Musk is doing that. He's doing that. If somebody said you can have your phone and a computer and a calculator and all this other stuff in your pocket and have it wherever you want with a full robust internet, people would have said, no, you can't. That's not, look, we have cell phones, but we can't do all that. And then Steve Jobs comes along and releases the iPhone and goes, yeah, actually you can. My point here is that just because the vast majority of people see something a certain way doesn't mean that's how it has to be. If you watch UFC, you will see the evolution of martial arts in real time happen faster with more changes in the past 20 years than it has ever happened in all of human history. Well, except maybe like Roman time when people were actually fighting for their lives and stuff. But in terms of combat sports, oh yeah, for sure. More has happened in the last 20 years than the last 300. Because that's what you have to do. You have to adapt to win. Now, here's this guy who was part of a system. Things were going along. It was just fine. This is why you hear people like Peter Schiff and Warren Buffett and people that are worth millions upon millions, if not in some cases billions of dollars, going, this Bitcoin thing is nonsense. They are seeing this outside system. They are seeing the Elon Musk to the car industry from within Ford Motor Company, from within Chevy, and going, that's a bunch of nonsense. But Elon is seeing it from the outside and going, that's how you're doing all of this wrong. That's not, you don't have to do any of that. We're going to do it this other way. When you're inside of a system and it's worked for you and it pays your bills and it's the system that has nurtured you and given you sustenance for years and years and years of your life, and then the people that you know and your dad and his dad and on and on and on, it's really hard to see an alternative to that. But this guy, for whatever reason, had the curiosity and he said, you know what? Hey, maybe I should pay attention to this and I'm going to look into it.
That came from this journey. You want an example?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that if the average year the money printer goes, call it 8 to 10%, even in the Western countries, even in the OECD nations, and the average return on the S&P 500 is, call it 9-ish%, including dividends, maybe 9.7, maybe a little less, that it means that all of the work of the S&P 500, all of the value created there is actually the money printer. That to me was startling. I mean, to think about that, the fundamental notion that in a closed system or even an open system, when you're printing money at the rate of 8 to 10% a year, everything is losing value, and the things that appear to be gaining value are not gaining value. They're just keeping you even. So you can put all your money in the S&P 500 and you're not gaining any relative wealth at all.
That's why I brought up the whole S&P 500 thing, is because if you put that in, you're getting 14%. He said 9.7 there with dividends. Okay. Depends on what time scale you're looking at, but let's go with mine. 14%. You're barely beating inflation. At 9%, you're about breaking even. What do you mean, Del? What does that mean? Here's how inflation works in the most simple, bare bones way that I can explain it. And this analogy is specifically for that person that asked me, did you hit it? In regards to Bitcoin and how the fellow that I worked with back in Michigan, this is directly for you. You know what a Black Lotus is. You know that card, depending on what version you get, is worth, what, tens of thousands of dollars, I think? Let's look it up. Let's see real quick. Black Lotus. Okay, so here we are on Card Kingdom right here, and the least popular is the silly one. That one, even that one's $16. Good grief. This is the Magic 30th anniversary that is not legal in tournament play. That's what they're not tournament play legal. This one's not legal. That one's $3,000, even still not legal. This one, not legal. This one, the retro frame one, it's not tournament legal, is $9,000 for a card that you can't even play in tournaments. That's crazy. Here's the cheapest one on Card Kingdom, and admittedly they charge a little bit higher because they have a higher quality threshold that they'll accept cards. But a very good one, that's not even near mint, good luck, is $13,000. The original printing, an alpha from the very first set in 1993 of Magic the Gathering, is $150,000. That is a lot of money. $150,000 for a piece of cardboard. That's a lot of money. Now, go on an imaginary journey with me for all of 10 seconds. What happens if tomorrow Wizards of the Coast comes out and says, we're eliminating the reserve list? After talking it over and going through extensive, we know that this is going to change the face of Magic forever, and it will be different than you ever expected. I guess this is a lot longer than 10-second journey, but continue with me. No more reserve list, and we're re-releasing Alpha. And we are going to print it like you have never seen before. We are going to print so much of this, we're calling it Alpha X2, the second iteration of Alpha. Alpha Extreme 2. It will have Black Lotuses in it. It will have the Power 9 in it. It will have all of the dual lands that you have always wanted. And we are going to print so much of this that if, let's say, there's, I don't know, 5,000 Black Lotuses in existence, alpha right now, that are near mint. I don't know how many there are, but let's just say there's 5,000. That number is going to be blown out of the water. There will be millions of Black Lotuses. And they will be indistinguishable from original Black Lotuses. We have found the way to print them exactly the same from when we originally printed it. We have the same exact paper. We are using the same printer refurbished, the same exact ink. They will be indistinguishable. We have submitted the newest batches of cards. This just came off of a printer, and this is one that is 30 years old. We have submitted this to the best graders in the business, the hands down best, and they cannot detect any discernible difference. None. So your Alpha Black Lotuses, your original ones, and your Alpha X2s, it's the same thing. And we've just gone, well, when we release this, from 5,000 in existence of the original Alpha to millions of these. You thought there was a lot of basic lands in existence? You ain't seen nothing yet. There's going to be twice as many Black Lotuses. Do you think if they made that announcement and that happened, that this price would stay at $150,000? If you do, you need to seek immediate mental help because you are not a smart person. You know, if you are a smart person, even slightly, if you have an IQ above 80, you know that what I just explained would utterly tank this price. Completely tank it. If you don't believe me, you can look at what happens when reprints happen. This happens time and time and time again. Let's look at, this wasn't even a reprint. Let's look at this card. This card right here, Grief, was about a $30 card not that long ago. Well, what happened? Did it get reprinted? No, but it got banned. It got banned. So the demand for that card went away. That's another reason that things can lose value. But if they reprinted the piss out of Grief, that would tank the price even lower. When money is printed, it makes everyone poorer. If you have $1,000 in circulation, 5,000 magic cards, and somebody comes along and prints $1 million more dollars, or $1 million more magic cards, the value of each dollar of each value card goes down. That's it. It has to be that way. It will always be that way. I mean, if you've ever played a video game and there was some item that was sought after because it was really hard to find, but then somebody found an exploit and made it super easy to find that item, well, then the demand for that item goes down in accordance with how easy it is to find. Let's say you play some sort of online game with an auction house, and there's some herb that somebody needs to make this special potion. Like in World of Warcraft, this happens. There's different herbs, there's different things, and people need them to make their special potions because it gives them the edge that they need to beat the bosses, da-da-da-da-da. Well, if somebody comes along and floods the market in the auction house with those herbs, just overnight just goes, okay, there's typically 3 to 5 in there, and they each sell for 20 gold. I'm going to come in and just list 10,000 of this herb. Fill the auction house with it. Do you think the price stays at what it was? If you do, once again, seek help because you're not a smart person. This is why things get more expensive. This is why after COVID, everything got more expensive. It's not corporate greed. I'm not going to say that never happens, but that's not typically the reason things go up in price. I work retail. I've worked retail basically all of my life. And Never once, not once in 20 plus years of working retail have I ever heard any of the managers, any of the stocking people, any of the inventory people saying, boy, I wish we could charge more money for this stuff. Never once. But what I have heard a ton of times is, I wish we could charge less for this, but we just won't have any margin if we do. We're charging as little as we can while still making some money. And you might go, well, it's not that. No. It's the people that they're getting it from. No, it's not. You dummy. Because they're having the exact same kinds of conversations all the way up the food chain. And again, sure, I'm guessing there are some outliers where people go, oh, let's make this more expensive. But why did the prices during COVID spike and then come back down on certain things like lumber or steel? It's not because people decided to get super greedy during COVID and then be really generous again after COVID. No, it's because those things became more scarce. It was harder to produce steel because there weren't as many people going to the offices. Maybe some of the factories were shut down. Maybe some of the lumber mills weren't functioning because of different precautions, different things, different mandates that they had to follow. They couldn't have employees there or couldn't have enough. So when they were able to previously run the lumber mill 24/7 and pump out 2x4s left, right, and center, well, as soon as this mandate comes down and says you can only run this with so many people and they all got to be this far apart from each other, you go, well, I guess we run a total of 6 hours of work each day now, and we're losing 18 hours of production, but we still have bills to pay. We still have employees that they have families. We're not going to just kick everyone to the curb and say, good luck, guys. No, to make this work, to keep things afloat, we're raising prices on lumber. Then the mandates go away and things get back into business, and then they can lower the prices again back to where they were, and everybody breathes a sigh of relief. The prices went up because the stuff became more scarce. But when your dollars are becoming more and more common, just like in Magic the Gathering, if you need basic lands, go to any card game store and say, hey, do you have any basic lands kicking around here? I just need any mountain and 2 islands and a swamp to finish my deck. Just do you have any of those? And they'll just say, yeah, there's a box over there. Take whatever you want. We don't care. We can't throw enough away. Every time we do draft, people just dump more in there. Just please take it. There was a card store, like most card stores, but I distinctly remember one in Lenovia. Am I saying that right? Lenovia? Yeah, I think so. Michigan. RAW Games. And they had a box, like a 5-row box or multiple of them. It was just lands and lands and lands. And some of those lands, like they had Lorwyn lands in there, were worth $1, $3, like a couple bucks. But there are just so many of them. Just take them. Please. Like, if you want some, if you need them for your deck, we don't care. There's so many of them here. It's not worth it to us. And that's the way that most currencies go. Like, basically every single one ever. Well, you mean money, Del? No, I mean currencies, local currencies. The debt right now, the U.S. debt clock right here shows what the debt is at. Right now in the very top, right up there, the top, let's see, I'll zoom in on it. This one right here. That's the total national debt. It's just shy of $36 trillion. Do you know what that means? That means, where is it? That means that your portion of that, if we wanted to pay this off, is $643,000. This is what you owe or would have to pay for us to pay off the debt. This is what every man, woman, and baby and elderly person would have to pay, somehow find, to pay off this insane debt. There's a lot of other numbers on here, but that is an incredibly big number. And how did that number get so big? It got that big because these fucking jackasses have the power to print money whenever they want. No, Ukraine wants money? Send them some billions of dollars. That makes everybody in the U.S. poor. Oh, this person over here wants money? Make them poor. Make the U.S. poor. Think of it like this. Think if everybody in the US had some amount of alpha magic cards. We all had alpha magic cards. We had some lands, we had some Black Lotuses, because we work here. We work really fucking hard for these magic cards. And they're worth a lot of money. We can go and we can trade them around, and it's worth a lot of money. A Black Lotus is worth $150,000. A basic island from Alpha is worth $60. These are great cards. And then Wizards of the Coast comes along and goes, "Hey, we heard that Ukraine and Israel and all these other places need some money." And we go, "Oh, okay. What do we care? What does that matter?" And they go, "Well, it matters to us. We want to help them out. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna double the amount of the alpha stuff in circulation." You're like, whoa, what do you? No, please don't do that. That's gonna make the stuff that I have worth half as much. Yeah, but they need it, so we're gonna print. We're gonna double the amount of supply and send all that over to our allies because they need our help. They do? That bad? They needed that help so bad that it's going to impoverish everyone here. It's going to reduce all of our money by half. It's going to reduce all of our net worth by half when you do that. Yeah, but we're actually, I know you guys are probably going to hate this, but we're going to do it a lot of times. So your net worth isn't going to be half. It's just going to keep going down and down and down all the time. It's just going to go down. If you're holding US dollars and that's what you're saving in, your value is just going to go down and down and down because we just aren't going to stop printing this. So, yeah. You hear these stories from grandmas and grandpas talking about how back in the day they could go in and buy a handful of candy from the corner store with a nickel. You can't buy much of anything for a nickel these days. The penny candy? A penny's a joke. Oh, that's because of corporate greed. No, it's not because of corporate greed. It's because that number that I just showed you is reaching $36 trillion. Now, what does this all have to do with Bitcoin? Bitcoin has beaten the S&P 500 by orders of fucking magnitude. It is not even close. It has beaten everything else, every other asset, every other investment by absolute orders of magnitude. And the reason for that is because that number that I pointed out earlier, that 3.125, keeps going down. So imagine the $35 trillion debt just going down and down and down. Did you figure out that would make your dollar worth more? If Magic the Gathering came along and said, we have a way to destroy just magically all of the basic lands in existence, they will just disappear from your deck. Every single deck. They will just be gone. Or rather, I guess to make this my point a little bit better, every single one except what is in your decks. If you have a card in your deck, if it's in an active deck right now, currently, it's magically, it's what it just, our system knows what's in a deck right now. You can't go and add something to a deck after this announcement. It doesn't matter. It won't count those. So if it is currently in a deck, a basic land, they will stay. But all the others will be gone. They will just cease to be. And we won't be printing any basic lands for the next 5 years. What do you think the price of basic lands would go to? I don't know, but I'm guessing, I'm pretty sure that it wouldn't be the free that they are now. Just wrap your head around that concept. There's no more basic lands in any booster packs and anything that's on any shelves. They're just gone from all the 5-row binders. They're just gone. All the islands, mountains, swamps, forests, and plains, gone. Except what currently exists in a deck. You want to build a new deck? You want to draft? You want to go play sealed? Well, you're going to probably need basic lands. Yeah, the game didn't change. It didn't change. Oh, you want basic lands? Those suddenly cost a pretty fucking penny. I guess you're taking them out of your decks to go and play with now. You're moving things around. This is why inflation is so damaging to people and why people have entire jobs, entire fields dedicated to preserving wealth. That's what investment people do. They're trying to make you money, keep your money and make you money. So that by the time you retire, you still have some money left. Because if you keep on putting away $100 here, $20 there, 10% of your paycheck, into a 401k, and it's matching pace with the S&P 500, okay, you're staying on track with inflation. So let's say by the end of your years, you want to retire at 60, we'll say, and you live a lifestyle that costs about $30,000 a year. You might be able to do things a little bit more frugally, but let's say it's $30,000 a year that you live, given your mortgage and your car payments and the food and the occasional trip that you like to go on. It's about $30,000 a year. And then you'd have to look at how many years do I have saved up? All right, I've got $100,000. Well, that's 3 years. That ain't long. Okay. Well, I guess I need about $1 million to get myself 30 years, roughly. Okay. All right. So I guess I could retire at 60. That gives me 30 years. Okay. But then I have basically nothing at the end of my days if I'm just taking money out of that to give to my children. I don't have much left if I'm just draining the retirement account. And you might say, well, yeah, but that $1 million would be invested, so you could probably just skim off the top. And yeah, it might work. It might work out as long as the S&P keeps on keeping pace with inflation. It doesn't dilute as fast as the money printer goes burr and the government just keeps on printing money. But what if there was a better way? What if there was a way that not only preserved your wealth, but preserved it the way that it was meant to be preserved? That's where Bitcoin comes into play. Now, I didn't go over all of these numbers because most of them really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Like you can see, whatever. I wish I had a pointer here that you could use. Maybe I can figure it out in OBS or something if there's a way to have my mouse be seen. It isn't seen, right? Like I don't see it at all. I don't know why. Anyhow, maybe I could drag something around. Doesn't matter right now. If you don't understand inflation, if you don't understand scarcity, if you don't understand how the dollar is failing in front of your face right now in real time, then you're going to be facing a tough time. You're going to face a tough time. And this is why my wife and I didn't know this stuff. Well, okay. This is why my wife and I decided to make that big life change. We didn't know most of this stuff, but we did know on kind of a gut level that things just kept on getting more expensive. And we would look at the home prices in the area and go, this just doesn't add up. There's no way we can ever buy a home. It won't work. The down payment and then the cost and then upkeep and then the occasional burst pipe or this or that or sewage. There's just no way. And it's not getting better. But life on a Bitcoin standard is getting better. Let me show you if I can find it here. Here it is. So in 2016, average home price in the U.S. was $288,400. And that was equal to, at that time, 8 years ago, 664 Bitcoin. 4 years later, the price of the home went up. Now, it went up because of inflation. It went up because the money printer went burr, more money was printed, your purchasing power went down. It's not that just real estate people around the country just said, hey, let's charge another $40,000 for our homes. Just unanimously. They just all agreed to that. No, that's why we see such a massive jump here. That's why it's so much of a bigger jump here. Because COVID happened and they printed more money than they've ever printed before, ever. in such a short amount of time. So at that time, it was a pretty sizable jump here. 664 dropped to 45 Bitcoin. So 664 Bitcoin, and then 4 years later, it drops to 45 Bitcoin. 4 years later, same home, same place. We're not moving around. This isn't a home in Manhattan, and then this one is in Podunk, Idaho. Same home, same price, just the average home price in the U.S. Nearly $500,000. And that's 6.5 Bitcoin. Now, I don't know that in 2028, if it's going to be 1 Bitcoin, I don't know that. But what I do know, what I know for a fact, I know it as much as I know that the sun is going to rise tomorrow, is that the amount of Bitcoin coming in is going to be cut in half. So back to the magic, all of those Black Lotuses in existence that are worth $150,000, imagine they all, half of them just disappear. And it's a known thing. Like, it's not a secret. It's just a known thing that this happens every single year or every 4 years. Half of the existence of Black Lotuses gets cut in half. They're just gone. Do you think the price goes down? It seems to me that at the very least, the price would go up. Now combine the halving of the Black Lotuses, just half of them vanish from existence. They're gone. There's 5,000, and then in 4 years there's 2,500, and then 4 years later it's half of that. Combine the perfect knowledge that this will happen, and we can see it, and everybody knows it. It's a public ledger. Look, here it is. The information about Bitcoin is right here. It's not hidden. There's no CEO. There's no company. There's no person that can control this. No one. It's like HTTP. It's part of the internet. This just is now. For this to be shut down, every single government across the world would have to put a coordinated effort to go into every single home and shut down every single tiny little node that was running it. And right now there's over 18,000 nodes. That's what the bottom corner over there is. Basically directly that way. Network, public nodes, 18,745. Where are they all? I don't know. And that doesn't even count the ones that are on hidden networks and some that come off and online. Like some of them flicker. They're online, they're offline. Some of them are. Maybe Elon's put some in satellites. I don't know. As long as there's one of those running, there's Bitcoin. You're not shutting this down. It's not going away. So back to the magic. Imagine, on top of half of the supply of Black Lotuses being cut in half, there's an increase in demand. More people are getting into Bitcoin. More people want those Black Lotuses. And as more people come in, that means more rich people come in, which means they have more money than other people to buy Black Lotuses, which does what to the price? Makes them go down? No. Makes them go up. Makes the price go up. And then 4 years later, cut in half. Cut in half. 4 years later, cut in half. 4 years later, cut in half. Do you think the price just goes down and down? No. 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 So do I know what the price is going to be in 4 years? I don't. I don't know. But if that were to continue, if this trajectory were to continue, roughly, well, this is about, it's a little bit less than a tenth, but that's, again, it's a little bit more than a tenth. Let's say that let's say this goes down to about a Bitcoin. About 1 Bitcoin. Let's say 2 Bitcoin. Let's say 2. And the price of a home in 4 years is somewhere in the $600,000 range. That would mean that each Bitcoin is worth in the range of $200,000. And when you look at this, and it's $76,000 right now, it doesn't seem all that crazy. There's a third number. There's the 76,000, there's the 1,300, and then right below that is 1.52. Do you know what that number is? That's the total value of all Bitcoin. $1.52 trillion. Bitcoin was the fastest asset to ever hit $1 trillion. It did it faster than anything else has ever hit $1 trillion. Do you know what gold's market cap is? It is $18.185 trillion. $18 trillion. Do you think something that is far more scarce, far more verifiable, far more transportable, far more secure, far more guaranteed, has all of the benefits of gold, except history? That's the only thing that gold has for, well, and cultural significance, I guess. But in every other, like, monetary sense, do you think that Bitcoin is going to stay at $76,000? Do you think it's going to stay at 1.51 trillion market cap? Or do you think there's a chance it might eat into that 18.185 trillion market cap of gold? And if you do think that that's going to happen, and if you do think, like I do, that it will overtake gold, do you know what that means for the total price of Bitcoin? It means that each coin, if and when it matches, or let's say let's say it matches gold, means each coin at that point is worth somewhere in the range of, I think it's $850,000. When will that happen? Don't know. But to me, it seems inevitable. So let's go back, bring this full circle, and where I said that, where you have 1.3 million sats, 1.300 million sats. If that today, right now, costs you $1,000, what would that look like if the price of Bitcoin was, well, more than 10 times? Well, it's pretty simple. That means your $1,000 in today would be worth more than 10 times. It would be worth somewhere in the range of $12,000. Now, do you know of anything else that will turn your $1,000 today into somewhere in the range of $12,000 in 4 or 8 years? And I don't know that that's what's going to happen, but it certainly seems like it's in the realm of possibility. Oh, and by the way, the new president that just came on board is to some degree a Bitcoiner. He went to the Bitcoin conference. He has RFK, who is a Bitcoiner to some degree. He's got JD Vance as his vice president, who owns Bitcoin. They've talked about building a strategic Bitcoin reserve. If you think like I do, that even when that happens and the US government starts getting this, then it just follows that other countries would do the same thing. There's no way Europe is going to sit by, or China, or Russia, or Brazil, or any other major country and just go, oh, they're getting into the Bitcoin thing? Yeah, the US government, that's probably nothing. We'll probably just let them do that. No. No, they would get in too. And where does the price go then? I don't know. What happens if countries start accepting it as legal tender? Like El Salvador. Like major countries. Big countries. Not just some little country in Central America, but major countries. France and Germany and India and Russia and China and South Korea. If they start accepting it, and they're all competing for different talent and to pull people over there, and hey, please come to our country. If you've got Bitcoin, we welcome you with open arms because we're hoping to get that Bitcoin into our system. We want that for our economy. I have a feeling that the world is going to look really, really strange in the not too distant future. The halving that I'm looking forward to is not 2028. That'll be interesting. It'll be cool. 2030. That is a big one. That is a big one. Here's why. For two main reasons. First reason, that's the first time that the block reward goes under a Bitcoin. If you get a block, if a miner gets a block, it will be less than a Bitcoin at that point. Right now it's 3.125. At that point, it'll be under that. Whatever, well, half of 3.125 is 1.5. It's a little over, it's like let's say 1.5. So then it goes under that. It's like 7.78, something like that. in 2030, that's big deal number one, because you're not even getting a single Bitcoin at that point. But the other big deal is that's the halving that marks 99% of Bitcoin having been mined. There will be 1% left to be mined. And when will that finally be mined? That'll happen in the year 2140, when, well, probably everyone watching this is long dead. More than 100 years. Wait, 21, no. Yeah, 2140. That'll be 108 years. So after the 2032 halving, there's every 4 years, so 2024, there was one that just happened in April of this year. There'll be another one in April-ish, give or take the months, however long it takes. It'll be around April-ish or early-ish of 2028. And then again in 2032, every 4 years, then 2036 and 2040. But after that one in 2032, it'll be 108 years. 108 years before the last of the Bitcoin is mined. It's a long time. 99% of it will have already been mined. Imagine 99% of the Black Lotuses ceasing to exist. And the knowledge that over the next 100 years, before this whole program, this whole system finished, and no more were deleted, that another, when it was all said and done, there would be 5 left. Do you think that price would stay at $150,000? With nation states wanting it, with everybody on the planet playing Magic the Gathering, seems like the Black Lotus might go to millions of dollars. It stands to reason. So, if you don't understand most of what I've talked about here, ask me or start doing some research. Because I think, at the very least, you could sit here and debate me all day long. I'm going to end on this. You can sit here and debate me all day long if you want on the merits of Bitcoin. That's fine. Whatever. We can do that. I'm not really interested, but we could. But what you really can't debate me on is whether or not it's a good idea to understand money. The stuff that you trade, the most valuable resource that you have, time and energy. You trade that for this thing. You trade it for money, for currency. Seems like a really good idea to understand what that stuff is. That's not debatable.